Hi everyone, my name is Nathan Janthan. I currently live in the East Bay in California, and I'm an incoming sophomore in college.
Hi, I'm Naren. I'm one of the co-founders of Peer to Peer, along with Nathan, and I'm going to be a junior next year or in 11th grade, and I also live in California.
My name's Akarshu. I'm a rising sophomore, and I've been a volunteer at Peer to Peer for a couple years now, and I'm going to help out with the presentation.
Thanks. And so we are the peer-to-peer team. And so Naren and I co-founded this foundation back in 2016 with the goal of connecting Sri Lankan students here to the students back in Sri Lanka who are facing different challenges. And so our goal was to not only inform the students here of how lucky we are to have the access to good education and stuff like that, but also try to get them to want to help their fellow classmates who are living across the world. And so we do that through teaching about projects and trying to get them involved as much as possible, and doing presentations like this to spread the word to second generation students who are living here so that they know the struggles that many generations before them had faced and are still currently facing the effects of. So yeah, so that's why we started the foundation. And so we hope that you guys enjoy it. And we're going to hop right into the presentation, and Naren will share a couple of the projects, and then we'll go through some of the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Nathan. So one of the first projects that we wanted to go over is one of our biggest projects, and it's making sure that schools have clean drinking water throughout the day. And so many schools in rural areas don't have this for various reasons. One of the first schools that reached out to us had this problem where all the water underground was contaminated by salt water. And as a result, the school during the day couldn't have access to cleaner water. And so our first solution to fix this problem was by having trucks deliver water on a monthly basis. And so these trucks would come in, they would fill up the water tanks, and this way students could have water throughout the day. And this worked extremely well. And this also worked with two other schools who reached out to us. And then our local coordinator brought us another school. But there was a problem here. The school did have all the same problems, and originally we thought that the same method would work with this school, but the problem was that it was in a very rural location, and as a result, having trucks deliver water to the school was very impractical. So we looked at their current situation. They did have a well, but the problem was that the well had been contaminated by an unknown source, which turned the water yellow. And so we decided maybe instead of bringing clean water to them, we could make clean water there. And so if you look at the bottom right, we actually put in a water purification system, which turned that yellow water into water they were actually able to drink. And in the left, you can see students actually like trying out the new water filter and the water after the ceremony that they had. And so through this project, we've been able to support 4 schools and over 1,000 students and make sure that they have clean drinking water throughout the school day. Now I'm going to let Nathan go over providing bicycles.
Thanks, Aaron. So I'm going to talk about the next project that we had that has been ongoing for a few years. So this is providing bicycles for students to get to class and stuff like that, as everyone has kind of unique situations. So we had a couple of batches for this. So in the top right, you can see this is when we provided 5 bicycles to underprivileged students, specifically orphan students who are living with families that are being supported by the CDPO, which is a Child Development Protection Organization. And so through the help of Mr. Anbumani, who's been a coordinator helping us with certain projects and identifying people in need. We were able to identify 5 students in specific at this one area that were in need of help with transportation. And as you can assume, since they're living with already support from the CDPO and they're orphan students, it's very challenging for them to organize transportation to school and other things. So having a bicycle makes it much easier for them to get around fast. Um, then on the left, on the top left, you can see that was another batch that we did. That was 4 bicycles to an orphanage, specifically a girls' orphanage. And they needed help getting to class and after school activities, tutoring, stuff like that. And then once again, since they don't have parents, it's a little bit harder for them to coordinate that kind of transportation. Um, so it's very important that they have this, so that it's not an obstacle for them to want to take up extracurriculars or go to tutoring and stuff like that. And then on the bottom, this was a batch of about 12 girls. And these students were just in need of extra safety, and they were going to classes and after school other programs. And their parents need like a peace of mind because obviously they're traveling a little bit later at night and stuff like that. So it's not always entirely safe for them. And having a bike cuts down that transportation time much more, and they're able to get home much faster and safer. And so through the help of Ms. Unbumoney, we were able to complete all these bicycle projects and identify all the students who genuinely needed this faster transportation. So I'm going to pass it over to Akash for the next project.
Thank you, Nathan. Our next project was the stipends for orphan and impoverished children. As many of you know, the war in Sri Lanka affected many people, and children were one of the main type of people who were affected, especially when it came to orphans and impoverished children. And many of these children that we identified to receive this monthly stipends ended up being orphans. And the problem was that many of them had to live with their aunts and uncles or any relatives, and they had to already take care of their children. So trying to support these children, their nieces and nephews, was very hard for them. So what we did was we identified students that were living with relatives and were having a hard time and not being able to get basic necessities such as food, water, and school supplies. And when we identified them, we provided them with a monthly stipend. And how the monthly stipend works was that whenever an aunt, uncle, or relative wanted to use the money, they would have to ask the student's principal what item they were buying and how much money they were going to use from the account. And then the principal would have to sign off in order for them to use or receive the money. And with that system, it's been very successful. We've identified 2 batches of students in the total of, which is a total of 20 students. And as of January of 2021, we've identified another 20 students, and all in the Mullaitivu district, we are providing monthly stipends to. And we continue to keep identifying and looking for more children who are orphaned or impoverished to receive this monthly stipend. And now I am going to pass it back to Naren, who will talk about providing classroom materials.
So providing classroom materials is just one slide, but it kind of goes over like a huge range of different things that we have to do. In providing classroom materials, it's always an ongoing project since different schools always need different materials. And it's something we've done for a very long time. I think that a lot of this comes from many of the areas that we're serving being very poor and impoverished areas. And as a result, they don't have as much government funding. And so a big way to help them is actually to purchase these basic necessities, which allow the things to allows the school to function. And so we often donate bigger things like printers, maybe computers, Wi-Fi access, or maybe smaller things like pencils, games, and toys. And we've helped many, many schools doing this. Just to name a few, on the left side, you can see us donating different supplies like picture books, toys, pencils, erasers to the Valalai AMTM school. And in the, I think, middle left and in the right, you're helping Karukaitivu Mahavidyalayam. For that school, we supplied to them brand new furniture for their science lab, and we repaired their old furniture. The school also had the problem where a lot of the materials after school hours were being stolen, and they had to keep replacing it, which kind of built up the cost quite a bit. And so we built up security grills not only to protect their classrooms, but also to protect their storage area. And we've given out thousands and thousands of notebooks, stationaries. We've given out backpacks to different students. And we try to make sure that students have these essentials in order to function throughout a normal school day. And something else I wanted to highlight with this project is not only is it kind of important to make sure that they have a proper learning environment, having these items at school kind of gives students a passion to come. It gives them a reason to come. Being able to have fun with other children at school is very important. And I think that this project allows them to do this. Another kind of aspect of this project is that a lot of these teachers teaching at these schools are voluntary teachers. Like I said before, these schools have very little funding, and as a result, they're not able to properly pay teachers. And so we've been supporting a few teachers by giving them monthly payments to keep them running. So now I'm going to pass it on to Nathan, who's going to go over building classroom sheds.
Thanks, Ryan. So building classroom sheds. So this is one of the projects that we did much earlier in the start of our foundation. And so specifically, this was at the Valai AMTM school. So at this school, unfortunately, during the war, their main school was destroyed. And fortunately, the community came together and had the school start up in the community center. All of this was a great solution. Unfortunately, after some time, it was very hard. As you can imagine, grades 1 through 5 were all cramped up in one room. It was really hot, really loud, very stressful for the teachers and the students who have to speak over each other, do activities, tests, learn all in one room. So it's a big challenge for them. And obviously, some of them would just sit outside and stuff like that. And they did have a few sheds there before that weren't built too well. They'd rattle, get really hot, weren't built too well. And it wasn't any long-term practical solution. So what we did was we um, found some proper built sheds. And so that, as I was saying, so yeah, so we built these sheds that were a little bit better quality and had more space. And this allowed the students and the teachers to spread out and not all have to be cramped up in the one room. And they're able to sit in proper shade with the, as you can see on the right, they're all happy. The desks are able to be spread out. Students don't have to be back to back and all cramped up. So it really makes their learning much smoother and much less stressful for the teachers and for themselves, and just much more peaceful in general. And so this was a great project. It was really rewarding to see them be able to enjoy their studying without having to worry about being surrounded by a whole bunch of other grades. So yeah, so I'm going to pass over to Karsh for the next project.
So our next project is preparing students for their O-level examinations. In Sri Lanka, there is a O-level and A-level examinations, and we specifically focus on the O-level examinations, which is a test taken in the 10th grade for all students in Sri Lanka. And in order to progress into 11th grade and take the A-level exam, students must do well on the O-level. So what we did was we provided practice examinations, and we did many sessions in October or November of 2019 to provide to these students so that they could prepare for the test. And the reason why we did this was because many students in the Mullaitivu district, they didn't have access to the private tutoring and after school classes, unlike the students from outside of Mullaitivu district in the bigger cities with more money. So they were having an unfair advantage not being able to study and get private tutoring. So what we did is we provided them with practice exams, and we worked with teachers throughout the Mullaitivu district to create these tests. And they were all math and science questions, and the students took to the tests in various testing centers. And I think we had a total of about 1,200 students take the test, and all of them were in the Mullaitivu district. And after the tests were taken, the students received their scores in like a report card like grade. And then even after that, the teachers would use their class time after the test to review over questions or any problems that the students got wrong, and they were able to review over them. And we were planning on doing this in 2020 last year, but unfortunately COVID hit. So we had to kind of change our plans. But we were able to come up with a solution, which was using Zoom. And we were able to do three sessions that were 2 hours long. And we were able to hold the test. But these weren't the regular practice examinations, these were the revisions. So students who didn't do well on the practice exams when we first did them in October or November of 2019, they were able to retake them and fix their problems in January. And I think those videos are on our website. You can go check them out. They're math and science tests that these students took. And the same thing applied. They were able to receive their report cards, and then they went over the questions with their teachers after class. And now I will pass it back to Naren, who will talk about helping children with cerebral palsy.
Thank you, Karsh. Before I go on to this next slide, I wanted to ask if there's like any questions, since we're a bit more than halfway through the presentation so far. Does anyone have any questions on like specific slides or different projects?
I think we will do the conversation at the end of the presentation. So just to continue the presentations, and there will be questions and actually more input or clarification will come after end of the meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. So before I kind of address what this next project is and what we've done with this project, I want to talk about what cerebral palsy actually is. It's a brain disorder that often takes place before birth, and it affects children's muscle movement, their coordination and posture. As a result, many children have exaggerated reflexes or just can't control their own limbs. And so as a result, these children need a lot of extra care and attention, and it can be extremely expensive for many families, especially in impoverished areas, to take care of their child. And so in order to help families and children with cerebral palsy, we partnered with a nonprofit called JJCDR, which works to create custom wheelchairs and frames for children with cerebral palsy. And so what these wheelchairs and frames do is it allows their family to transport these children with cerebral palsy, as well as it keeps them in a proper position so they're able to breathe properly as well. And so we've provided the funds to build more wheelchairs and more frames, and we've tried our best to target families in low income areas that needed it the most. And so we also wanted to continue this project, and so we started this supplementary nutrition program where we gave milk powder packets in order to give proper nutrition to children with cerebral palsy. I was actually able to visit the center and see a child receive their wheelchair for the first time, and their like mother completely lit up because it kind of like changed kind of their world and how she's able to take care of her child. Now I'm going to pass it on to Nathan, who's going to go over aiding the visually impaired and donating glasses.
Thanks, Naren. So there's a couple of projects that we have surrounding aiding the visually impaired students. So first, I'll talk about just general testing. So throughout the years, we offered around 500 testings to students. And from those 500 students who were tested, approximately 350 of them received eyeglasses through us. And so the problem obviously is many of these students are young, they're elementary to middle school, even high school, and they don't know even that their vision might be bad. And so they're just going through life not even knowing this, and it's indirectly obviously affecting their education because they're not able to see, they're not able to see as well, write as well, and just even outside the classroom too, they might be struggling. And so obviously for many of them, they're coming from slightly poor backgrounds, and they may even getting glasses may not even be an option for them given their budgets. So this was a very important project to help them in the classroom, outside the classroom, and be more excited about going to school and stuff like that. So fortunately, we were able to work with some local glasses providing companies, and we were able to get some great deals and provide these glasses to all these students at a very effective cost. And as you can see in the bottom left, we're with Mr. Anbuvani, we're providing these glasses to all the students at one of the schools. And so that was for providing glasses. And then another project we had for the visually impaired was providing computer training for visually impaired students. In the bottom right, you can see two girls are going through and learning basic computer skills. And so this was a great program. People were able to work with other students like themselves who have various levels of visual impairment. And they're able to gain some computer skills, which is something that they would have never imagined doing. And this gives them a little bit of a taste of something else that they may have never experienced before, and broadens the horizons a little bit with opportunities through education and maybe finding some work in the future. And as you can see, these girls are laughing, they're having a great time. So it's a really fun program for them. They're able to get some really good learning out of it while also enjoying it and hopefully making some friends and working with people who are also going through similar challenges as them. So in addition to these few projects, we also provided typewriters and braille paper to students who are like much more blind. And so at that school, obviously with a very tight budget, something like typewriters is very expensive to provide for a handful of students. So it just couldn't be fit in with the school's budget. So we were able to step in luckily and provide a handful of typewriters to these students along with braille paper so that they're able to write out and practice their writing skills and do some physical learning that wasn't an option really for them before. So that was also really important because without being able to see properly, that's really a huge obstacle to the quality of these students' education. So yeah, so now I'm going to pass it back to Naren. Oh, sorry, Akash.
Thank you, Nathan. So another project during COVID that we took on was providing food for struggling families. And as you know, COVID affected everyone around the world, but specifically in Sri Lanka in specific parts, there were people who couldn't even put food on the table. So what we did was we identified them and we were able to provide them with bags of food. And we provided 100 bags of food to 100 families, and each bag contained rice, dal, soya meat, sugar, fish, and packets of tea. And we bought everything, distributed everything. So it was a pretty large scale project. Fortunately, everyone was able to receive their food, and they were all able to get a boost even after COVID knocked them down. So it put a smile on our faces that we could help out a lot of families who were struggling. And now I'm going to pass it back over to Naren, who will talk about our most recent project, the reading room.
Thank you, Karsh. So as Karsh said, this is our most recent project, and in some aspects, it's one of our biggest projects. And so the goal of this project is to teach English to Sri Lankan students. And kind of the idea behind this is this way it'll open up new opportunities for them in the future, since English is a language that's spoken all throughout the world. And so we thought of many different ways that we could go about approaching this. And so our first step in this entire process was to build classroom libraries. And so we built up the libraries where we donated around 300 books to the schools. And around those books, we started to build a curriculum around them. And so this curriculum consists of many different things. One of the things that we've already completed is creating video readings where students in the US will actually read out these books. So students in Sri Lanka are able to listen to them and hear like pronunciation and how everything goes, and like even like the flow of words in English. We've also selected hard words from each book and created vocabulary videos that go over what the words mean, how to pronounce them, and it even uses them in sentences and has pictures. And so right around when we began this project, COVID hit, which slowed us down a lot. It was kind of discouraging, since a big aspect of this project was students being in class and ready to learn and being there on a daily basis. But we decided that instead of pursuing what we originally wanted to pursue, we could do other things. And so we began doing live sessions. And so how these would work was it would be students in the US would teach students in Sri Lanka live. And so students here would read books to students there. We would read long passages, short passages, and students there in Sri Lanka would follow along with their hard copies of the books. We would also play activities and different games with them to make sure they were engaged in learning. And we would also do some different vocabulary reviews. So now we're kind of looking towards the future steps of this project and how we can complete a curriculum and kind of get the entire thing going once more. And so our team is currently working on leveling the books based on difficulty. We want to create a bunch more activities and games to test knowledge to make the classroom fun, as well as actual tests based on the running record method in order to gauge the reading ability. And so our end vision for this curriculum and program is to create a individually based reading program, which is catered towards each student's needs and make sure that they're meeting the requirements for each following grade level, as well as class-read books that students can read together. So this is the last slide in our presentation, and I want to thank you guys for listening to it. And I also wanted to take the time to say that peer-to-peer is something that kind of grew out of Nathan and my passion of learning and our desire to make connections with kids back home. And we wanted to make sure to share our passion with passion of learning with them and make sure that they have the same chances we did at school. Thank you.
Thanks.